Hey there, folks. We haven't had any conversations through video conference, so you really, other than the introductory syllabus video and the Meet Me video, haven't had an opportunity to really look at my bright smiling face so far this semester, and I apologize that the third time that you get an opportunity, it looks pretty bad. I honestly am still recovering from my weekend. We went down to the river and just laid out for a while and took the boat out a little bit, and I've just got lazy. I think I've gotten caught up on grading this morning, but needed to give you some information about the first paper that you're going to write so that you'll understand what I'm looking for, what my expectations are. You'll understand what the grading considerations are going to be. So first of all, please excuse my unkempt appearance. I tried to make sure that my hair was at least neat before I turned on the video. But I will shave tonight in preparation for my in-person class. Tomorrow you get the downside of Dr. Grimes taking it easy one day. At any rate, my view for this particular class involves a three-step process, and I'm going to work my way backwards so that what we're doing right now makes more sense. What I'd really like to have you come out of this class with, as you got an idea about in the syllabus objectives, is that you can become aware of what's going on in society, in the world of HR that really impacts HR. And whether you're an HR person or a manager, understanding what HR is dealing with helps you either to do it better if you are HR, or to maybe figure out how you can assist HR in making that happen. And if nothing else, kind of appreciate what it is that they're doing to try to make your life easier so that you don't have to worry about some of these things. And so what I'd like you to be able to do at the end of the semester is to play the role of HR and to deliver a presentation to senior management through a video conference that we'll do where you lay out the solution to a problem that exists in a real-world organization, where you have done a little bit of research on what the options are. Let's say that the problem is X. You have looked on SHRM and you've done some research on what the trends are, how people are dealing with that in the workplace today. And you're able in 7 or 8 minutes to lay out a proposal to senior management that kind of talks about the timeline on how we're going to resolve this problem, what the costs are, what the benefits are, what the return is, who's going to be responsible, how we're going to create accountability, how we're going to determine whether this is successful or not, how we're going to measure the effectiveness of the program. All the things that senior management would want to know if the CEO and the CFO and all the other whoever O's are trying to decide whether to do this thing or not. I'll give you more information in another video a little bit later on, but basically with that in mind, you're going to solve a problem. That's step 3 of this process. So backing up, step 2 is where you're going to do most of your research about this problem, and that'll involve a paper that's very short, but that's going to really dig into SHRM about this particular topic. It may end up being that this particular topic that you select, not that I assign, is something that we're talking about one week anyway, and that certainly plays to your advantage. But if in the event you choose a topic that is not one of the weekly topics, you're going to have to do a little bit of research, but you're going to write a paper that kind of lays out what's going on. That's the second paper. More information to come in another video in a month or so. Backing up there, and again, solve a problem in step 3 that you clearly defined and researched in step 2, but that all happens within the context of an existing organization. You don't just make up a company and make up a problem, but you go in as though you're a consultant to a company, learn about one of their issues that they're dealing with, and then you serve as a consultant and solve it for them. And that's where paper 1 comes in that we're dealing with right now. I've called it in the syllabus and in the assessments section of our class, and you've already read through this. I'm going to talk about it in this video. The professional paper. That's where you establish or build or strengthen a relationship with an existing HR person. Those of you who are in HR, maybe it's your immediate supervisor, or maybe it's somebody that you know within the field at another organization. It doesn't need to be your own organization, probably, because you're too involved in it and you can't be quite as detached and objective. So what I want you to do in preparation for writing this paper for me, which is due at the end of this month, it's due at 10 p.m. on the last calendar day of this month. That doesn't happen to be a Friday in this case, so keep an eye on the calendar. I believe it's due 30 days, as September, April, June, and November. Today's September the 6th. It's due on the 30th of September, which is a Thursday night at 10 p.m. It's only designed to be about 3 pages long. In fact, as you're working through this paper, I want you to go start on page 1 with no headers, no introductory Dr. Grimes, this is the name of the paper, this is the date, this is the class, none of that kind of stuff. On the very first line, introduce the paper and start writing. All the way down through page 1, all the way down through page 2, somewhere on page 3 you stop. And hopefully it's halfway down the page, but I'm not going to really be too specific about that. I do not want you to go to page 4. If you've got so much information that you start to go to page 4, look back and see what you can consolidate or leave out, because I really only want to read 2.5 to 3 pages per person. With 25 people in the class, that's an awful lot of reading on my part. So I just want you to hit the basics to build the framework for the upcoming papers. So now with that in mind, if you haven't already printed out the information that I am going to go over here, it's not something that you can quickly link and print. You're going to have to probably copy and paste it to Word like I did to get my talking points here. But you might want to have that handy as you listen to this video. So we've already talked about how it should be no more than 3 pages. I'm hoping that it is about 2.5 at least, maybe towards the bottom of the 3rd page, but not onto page 4, not stopping on page 2. I want you to use Calibri typeface, 11-point font size. That's pretty standard with what I do in all of my classes. So where other classes might use Times New Roman or Verdana or something like that, I really like the look of Calibri. It seems to flow well in my mind as I'm reading. Calibri 11-point. When you go to the spacing of it, I want it to be 1.5. You should have that as an option, and if you don't know how to do that, shoot me an email and I'll see if I can show you some screen prints to help you find that so that it is 1.5. It's normal margins. It's like 1 inch all the way around, whatever the default is in Word. I want there to be 4 main sections, and what I'd like for you to do, at the very top of page 1, I want you to put setup and then drop down a line. And then you don't have to really necessarily put these next headings, but I want it to flow in this order. The first part of setup is some information about the company. I want you to include the name of the company, where it is. If this is the headquarters of multiple locations, you don't necessarily have to name all the locations, but give me the impression that this is bigger than just a one-stop shop, that there are sales locations, or there are warehousing or distribution or whatnot. If it is a one-stop shop, then just say it's located in Donaldsonville or wherever it is. So the name of the organization, the location, what industry it's in flooring, or it's in financial services or banking, or whatever the general industry is. How old this company is. It was founded in 1992, or it was founded in 1937. You may not be able to get that specific. It was founded in the 20s or in the early part of the 1900s or whatever, to give me an idea of how long this thing has been in existence. And then the number of employees that there is. You may be able to do this in just a sentence or 2, but the company part of this person, what do I need to know about the company that this person works for? So that is part A under setup. Part B is something about the HR department that this person works in. And some of this is dictated by the size of the organization. If it's a big organization, it may be a big HR department. If it's a small organization, this person may be the only one who does HR. And it may be that this person is part-time HR, sharing time with accounting or payroll or something like that. But in a very short paragraph, this may just be a couple of sentences, but it is a separate paragraph from the company. In the HR department paragraph, how many people are in HR? Whether they have generic roles, like everybody kind of does the same thing, or whether they have specific roles. One of them may be a recruiter, one of them may be handling compensation and benefits, one of them may be handling employee relations and discipline, those kinds of things. But give me a general idea of how specific they get in their task, and then what the main functions are that HR does in this company. And again, depending on the size of the company, bigger organizations mean that HR takes on a whole lot more roles. Smaller organizations may mean that some roles that may be traditionally HR are done by other areas within the company or may not be done at all. So what are the main functions that they do? So there's just really three main things that I want to find out in this section. It doesn't have to be very long. The third part of the setup section of this paper is getting more specific about the person that you've chosen to work with this semester. And that's basic information, as it says in the instructions, like you would find on a resume. The first subsection under the HR person that you've chosen is basic information about that person. What's this person's name? Where did this person go to school? What degree did they get? Where was it? You don't have to tell me when they got it. I don't need to know how old this person is. But the other thing that I want you to mention in the opening here to this person is, what was it that made HR seem interesting to this person? That may take a couple of sentences or even a short paragraph in and of itself. Everybody who's in HR does it for a reason. Some people kind of default into it. They're doing something else in the company and they ask them to take on this role, and they get to where they kind of like it. Other people study this in college and it's a passion for them. What is it about HR that made this person end up in this line? So that's the past, the name, their education, and what interested them. The second piece of this looks more at the present. What is this person's title within the organization? How long have they been in HR with this organization and in this title? Have they progressed into this role? Did they start out somewhere else and move into HR? Did they start out entry-level HR and work their way up? How have they progressed? And then give me a summary, maybe in a couple of sentences perhaps, what this person typically does on a regular basis. What are the responsibilities that this person has to handle within the HR role? The third piece of the HR person section of this particular setup is, if this person were serving as a recruiter to get people passionate about HR like this person is, find out what this person would say to the question, why HR? Why should somebody go into HR? Why would you encourage people to consider this as an option for a career? What makes this person passionate about this field? And what does this person think that HR is able to do for the individual as a career choice, and for the organization? What would the organization look like if there were no HR? What would this person probably be doing if there were no HR? So all of that is under HR person. Hopefully you see that company is very brief, basic information. HR department is very brief, basic information. And HR person's a little bit longer because you're starting to introduce me to this person. What I really want to be able to do from reading this is to get enough of a background about this person to understand everything that happens from this point forward, so you don't have to repeat yourself. We can go into paper number 2 and into the project presentation without giving me any background whatsoever on the person, because I already know it. I've read this paper. All right, so the first section is setup. It gives me paints the background picture. You may be most of the way through page 1 at this point. If you've gotten on to page 2, you've gone too long in some section because there's so much coming that you don't have room left to do what you need to do. Section number 2, I want you to actually move to a new line and put the heading State of HR and then drop down a line. So you've got at least 2 major section headings clearly distinguished here. That makes it easy for me to really figure out what to look at as I'm grading. State of HR really looks at 2 things, and these may be separate paragraphs or they may be separate pieces of the same paragraph. But talk to this person and see what this person thinks is the reality out there with what's going on nationally. What are the things that are happening that this person is reading about, is interesting, that are becoming part of this person's radar? It may be going on at this company, or it may be something that this person thinks is going to come to this company, but it's not here yet. What's going on nationally? That may be a good paragraph or perhaps a little bit more, as this person throws out several different ideas. You don't have to do any research on these ideas, but be able to give a basic idea of not only what the general topic heading is, but what this person thinks about that topic. And then the second part, what are the current things happening in this organization that HR is dealing with? What challenges have come up that the organizational leaders, the CEO has said, HR, I want you to look into this for me. I want you to figure out what's happening here or how this is going to impact us. The first part of this is, again, what's going on around us that maybe has not hit us yet. Second part is, what are we dealing with right now? It may have been going on in the environment, in the nation last year, and it's just now come to us, but we're in the middle of it now. This is probably at least a good paragraph between the two, and it may be two somewhat short paragraphs individually. All right, the third part is another brand new section heading where you're going to drop to a new line. You're going to write trends in HR or trends outlook or something, and drop down to a new line, start a brand new paragraph. What I want you to write here is something that comes about after you've spent a little time talking to this person about not so much in the last section what's happening right now, but what this person thinks is going to be happening in the near future. One of the very big benefits we talked about in the very first discussion about the strategic role of HR is the ability of HR to kind of see what's on the horizon and to start preparing for it now. It's going to be real frustrating to senior leaders of the organization if HR is always reacting rather than being proactive. So talk for a little bit with this particular HR person about what they think is coming. What are they reading in SHRM? What are they seeing in the headlines? What are they seeing on the news coming out of the Supreme Court, coming out of the National Labor Relations Board? All these kinds of things that we need to start thinking about and getting ready for now before it's too late. If we've already got some ideas and some potential solutions, when that thing hits us, we're going to be able to respond faster, which creates more strategic benefit for us. In a couple of paragraphs, summarize what this person sees coming. The last part of the paper is going to be the fourth major section heading, and you're going to put issue and then drop to a new line. Now we want you to talk with this person about some of the things that are weighing down HR now, that's taking up some of their time trying to figure out ongoing, currently open issues. And you may come up with 2 or 3. You may have to really get the HR person to do some brainstorming for you, because there may not be anything right on the top of their brain, but there's always something going on that they're working on that is in an unfinished status. And I want you to be able to really come together with a list of a couple of different issues, because step 2 of this 3-part progression project that you're working on this semester is that you're going to really focus in on one of the issues that comes up in this section of your paper for you to play the consultant and help them resolve. So the more issues you can come up with now, maybe this part of the interview with the person is saying, listen, one of the things that I've got to do for this class is play the role of a consultant. So if there's anything that you can think of that comes to mind right away that your department is kind of working through and struggling with now, let me do some of the research for you. Let me see if, just for fun, if I can come up with a solution to whatever problem you're facing that I can maybe give to you on the side and let you look over and see if it's something that you could build upon to present to senior management and do some of the work for you. And you don't even have to pay me. I'll be a consultant at no charge. But in this part of the paper, I want you to at least list a couple of issues that this particular person is working with in HR. You don't have to get into detail of research. That'll happen in paper number 2. You certainly don't have to provide a solution. That'll happen in the project. But start to identify what those issues are for this person at this organization. All right? As I look through 25 different papers, I may see an awful lot of overlap in the state of HR, what they think is going on nationally and within their organization. I may see an awful lot of overlap in terms of the trends that they're seeing that's coming, but I ought to see an awful lot of different kinds of things in terms of the issues, because every organization has different issues that they're dealing with right now. Hopefully that's giving you a pretty good idea of what I'm looking for. 4 main sections. I really do expect that it's going to be 3 pages tops. It's going to be Calibri. It's going to be 11-point normal margins. It's going to be 1.5 spacing. I really expect that you're going to have 4 very distinctive headings in the paper. The setup, the state of HR, the trends outlook, and the issue. And I really hope that you're going to find a way to write this in such a way that I can figure out when you're talking about the organization and when you're talking about the HR department and when you're talking about the HR person. Again, you don't have to put subheadings for those things, but make it kind of obvious that that's what you're talking about there. In terms of grading, I've attached a rubric to the Dropbox, and you can see where I'm going to be looking to grade these things. 6 main things that I'm grading. The setup section is worth 20 points. The state of HR section is worth 20 points. The outlook section is worth 30 points, and I really expect the trends outlook. I expect you to really go into more detail there on what they think is coming. The issue section is 15 points. That's a little bit small in terms of the overall thing, but you're going to write a paper about the issue, so I'm going to expect you to expand in that. Then format is worth 10 points. That's those things like the Calibri and the 1.5 spacing and the 11 point and the headings and so forth. Is it 3 pages? 10 points on that. And then overall grammar, spelling, and the overall flow of information is worth 5 points. Each one of those is broken down into 4 categories. If it is perfect, I can't find anything wrong with it, you get all 20 or all 30 or whatever it is. If there are minor things, but overall it's an A, you're going to get roughly 90% of those points, or 95% of those points maybe. If there's a little bit more wrong with it, it's pretty good. It's certainly not great, but it's pretty good. You'll get about 85% of those points. And if it's fair, you're going to get 75%. So as long as you turn something in, you pay. The worst you can do is get 75% across the board. So it's a C. Hopefully that makes a lot of sense as you think about what I'm looking for. You do have until the end of the month, so hopefully that's plenty of time to figure out who it is you want to talk to and make some initial connections with them. You may not ever have to talk to this person again once you get through this paper, because once you identify the issue, you can research on your own without that person's help. And when you get ready to do the project presentation, you may not need them to consult with you. You could always practice the presentation on them to see what they think, and to get some feedback on what you might need to include in there as they think about when they would take that issue to senior management, so that you don't miss anything important. But potentially, once you get through this little series of interviews to write this 3-page paper, you're done with this person, so you don't have to get their commitment for any long-term involvement. If you have questions, send me an email, and or if you think it's something that everybody would be interested in the class, post something to the generic discussion board, the Ask Dr. Grimes discussion board, and I can respond on that discussion board for everybody. But again, I hope that that gives you a pretty good overview of what I'm looking for. It's not going to surprise you. The biggest challenges, I think, are to get this much information into 3 pages. I think that you could very potentially go on for much longer than that if you really wanted to go in depth. Keep an eye on your time and on your spacing, and make sure that it fits within the parameters, and don't have any reason to believe that anybody is not going to do well on this. If you have questions, again, send me an email or post something to the discussion board, and we'll try to address it. Hope things are going well for you.